Good evening, ladies. I really, really, really want to learn with you so badly before Pesach. And I think that it's the most important thing. Cleaning for Pesach is super important, but also preparing for Pesach spiritually and emotionally, it's super important. And it makes our Chag so much more meaningful. But I just can't find the time during the evenings. So I thought to myself, I'm just going to make this shiur and send it to you and make it now in the mornings when I'm more available. I want to talk to you about a few things that will make a difference for us. 3,300 years ago, the Jewish people were walking towards the mountain of Sinai, Mount Sinai, and they were walking between the time of Pesach and Shavuot. That's when they were walking to the mountain of Sinai, and for us, this time would have been Chol HaMoed. It would have been for us Chol HaMoed if it wasn't for the students of Rabbi Akiva that died in the plague. The 20,000 students that were such tzaddikim, such righteous people, and they all died. And to this day, we grieve over this great loss to the Jewish nation. But if it wasn't for them, it would have been Chol HaMoed for us. We would have been only wearing beautiful, special clothes. And it would have been such a different time. Because during that time, the Jewish nation, we were walking out, and as we were walking, every day that passed, Hashem elevated us. Right? There were 49 days between Pesach and Shavuot, and during those days, Hashem elevated us from one spiritual level to the other. And that's also what happens every year. And it's all this time, it's the days of Pesach. All this time it talks about what happened to us, how we came out of Mitzrayim, how Hashem saved us, and we had the redemption, and Hashem took us out of Egypt, and then we had the splitting of the sea, and then we walked all the way to the Temple Mount, to the mountain of Sinai, and every day Hashem elevated us to a higher spiritual level. And then we were given the Torah at such great days when we were formed, when we became a nation. And it is such an amazing thing how Hashem took us out of Egypt, but we can also see how it repeats itself again and again and again. We speak about it all the time. Every time we make Kiddush on Shabbat, twice, 2 Kiddushim on Shabbat, we say Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. We're saying this is a memory in memory of how Hashem took us out of Egypt. And then on the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur, 5 prayers we have. In every single prayer, we say Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim, which means Yom Kippur, we remember how Hashem took us out of Egypt. And then it's Rosh Hashanah, or beforehand, it's Rosh Hashanah, and on Rosh Hashanah, we say it again. Every single Kiddush, and every single Chag we have, we say Zecher, in memory of how Hashem took us out of Egypt. Twice a day, every day, we say how Hashem took us out of Egypt. And why? Why do we remind ourselves again and again and again and again? How is it related to Yom Kippur? How is it related to Rosh Hashanah? Why do we keep on going back to how Hashem took us out of Egypt? And it's such a basic thing in our religion. Why? And the reason is, the truth is that without Hashem taking us out of Egypt, we wouldn't have been here. There would have been no Judaism. If it wasn't for how Hashem took us out of Egypt, we wouldn't have been Jewish, and we wouldn't have had Shabbat, had shuls, and we wouldn't have had rabbis, and I would just be playing in Egypt this day, playing sheshbesh, not doing anything, not being Jewish at all. This is what made us Jewish. And it's not only that it made us Jewish, because this is how Hashem, after that, Hashem took us to the mountain of Sinai and gave us the Torah. It's not only that. The fact that Hashem took us out of Egypt is our proof that there is a God. And that's how we know that there is a creator. And that's how we know that there is a Hashem. And you can ask yourself, now that I'm saying this, you can say to yourself that it doesn't make sense. Is that the only fact, the only proof that we have Hashem? What about the creation of the world? What about us looking around and seeing the world, and where did it come from if it wasn't from Hashem? An explosion made all of it? It doesn't make sense. But Judaism say, okay, fine, we can think about it this way. And it's something that we should do. We should look at this world and understand from this that there is a Hashem. But the real fact, the real proof that we have that Hashem is the creator and that there is a Hashem is the fact that he took us out of Egypt. That is our proof. And in our generation, that is a confused generation, that's what we need. We need this proof. And that's why I think it's so important to learn it again and again and again, and to implement it in ourselves, knowing what are the basic things of our religion. So 450 years ago, there was a rabbi named Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, and he lived in Tzfat, in the Holy, Holy Land. And he wrote a book that is a very famous book. It's called Hakuzari. And it talks about a debate or a discussion between a king and the heads of other religions, between this king and Christianity and Islam and Judaism. And the story is about this king of Kuzan, that he was a very spiritual king, and he wanted to hear proof about the existence of God, of Hashem. And he debated who to ask. So he, at the beginning of the book, he describes how he didn't want to approach the Jews. We were hunted, we were humiliated, we were in exile. And he said, they have the real truth about who is Hashem, who is the real God of the universe? Probably not. So he didn't want to approach us first. So he approached the Christians. And he approached this philosopher, this Christian philosopher, and he asked him about, is there a God? So he told him, yes, obviously, without a doubt. So he asked him, how do you know? And he says, it says in the Bible. Here, let's open the Bible. It says, da-na-na-na-na. So he told him, this is no proof. The fact that it says so in the Bible, I can write something else. In different books, it says different things. This is no proof that there is a God. So he asked the Muslim, and he answered him the same question. So he said, okay, I will ask the Jews. And unwillingly, he did so. And so he asked him, is there a proof that there is God? So he told him, yes, there is. And the proof is the fact that we came out of Egypt. And then he got very angry. He said, I was right when I didn't ask the Jews. This is no proof that there is a God. Look, you could have said anything else. You could have said that, look, there was the creation of the world. That is the greatest proof that there is a God. So why are you saying the fact that he took you out of Egypt? Why are you being so arrogant? Look at us. Hashem chose us among other nations. Why do you have to bring it up all the time? You just keep on talking about how Hashem took you out of Egypt. So he says, no, I will explain why this is the proof that I gave. We weren't here when Hashem created the world. If you open the Bible, it says that the man was created last. We were created after the mosquitoes even. We were created on the last day. We were the last creation, and we weren't here. So how can we tell anything about what happened before we were even here? But the fact that Hashem took us out of Egypt, we know. We were there. We saw everything. We saw all the 10 plagues, and we saw everything that happened afterwards. We saw how Hashem split the sea, and we saw how Hashem took us through the desert. We were there. And no other religion tries to claim that God revealed himself to millions. Right? When we came out of Egypt, we were millions. There were at least only 3 million men. No, we're talking at least 3 million people, because we know that there were 600,000 men between specific ages. So we know that there were many of us. If there were so many of us that saw it, it's not something that you can make up. Let's say someone wants to make up a religion. Let's say I want to make up a new religion. So I go to bed and I wake up in the morning and I go to people and I tell them, you don't know what happened. Hashem revealed himself to me. And they can answer me, okay, do you have any proof for that? So I said, no, this is my experience. So they're not likely to believe this religion. Okay, another thing I can do is I can go to my entire family, 60, 100 people, can tell them, let's all make up a religion together. And this is harder because they can lie, or they can tell the truth to someone else. But let's say we decide to make up a religion and we want to make up the revolution of Hashem revealing himself. So we can all, let's say my entire family, or even my best friends. We can be a group of 10, 12, maybe 100. And we're saying we are going to make up a story of how Hashem revealed himself, of how God revealed himself to us. And then we gather together and we have this little plot. And we convince other people when we say Hashem revealed himself, or God revealed himself to us. And he says, really, to who? So he says, look, we are 100 people and we all saw him. So it's a higher likeliness that we're not all lying, right? So he might believe us or he might not. But no one ever tried claiming that Hashem revealed himself to 3 million people. Now let's say I would try to make up something like that. I would try to make up God revealing himself to millions of people. And then I go to other people and I'll tell them, God revealed himself to millions of people. So he will ask me, where are they? Where are those people? And if I don't have millions of people right here standing that we all can testimony that it really happened, you won't believe it. The fact that there are millions today, not even Jews, billions then, that believe that Hashem took us out of Egypt means that back then, when it really happened and we started telling it, that it really happened, because we can't make it up. You can't make up Hashem revealing himself to millions of people. If I would try to say so, I would have to bring those millions of people and show it to someone in order to get even one believer. The fact that there are millions and billions of believers today means that back then when it happened, there were millions of people that were able to give this testimony. And it's hard to convince 3 million people to make up one religion and for all of them to give the same testimony. And for millions of people to claim exactly the same thing and to get millions of people to lie about something. It's very not likely to happen. And so we have the testimony of millions of people, and they're all saying exactly the same story. They're all saying about how the Jews were in Egypt, of how Hashem taking them out of there, giving 10 plagues, punishing the Egyptians, but not the Jews, which means how during those plagues, we saw how Hashem controls every single level of this world, right? The first plagues, they are in the earth, right? We have the plague of dung, and then we have the plague of frogs, and then we have lice. These are all things that are lower down. Then we have things that are on the ground, things that we can see, for example, arov, arbe, how Hashem punishes the animals, and things that are not just the ground itself, but things that are higher up. And then we can see how Hashem controls everything that is in the sky. We have the barad, how do we say barad? Those giant ice mixed with fire that fell to the ground, or how Hashem made dark in the world for 3 days, darkness that was so thick people couldn't even move. And we can see how Hashem controls the entire world, but at the same time, he can make it very, very specific. I mean, Jews weren't at all affected by it. I mean, at the same room where there were Egyptians and they couldn't see anything, they couldn't even move because the darkness wrapped around them, Jews were able to see and they were able to walk. So it's not only that Hashem controls the world, but it's also that he can make it very specific. He controls it in a very individual way. And it's not just random for everyone. And so we had the 10 plagues, and then the splitting of the sea that it just opened. And we all have in our minds this image of this sea splitting to two. But this is now how it happened. This is like the Christian image that we always see. But it's not how it happened. When the splitting of the sea happened, it split into 12 different passageways for every single tribe. Every single tribe has its own path in the sea. And it says, the pasuk is Shvilecha b'mayim rabim, which means Hashem has in his paths in the sea were many. And then Hashem walked them through the desert for 40 years. So millions of people experienced all these things, and they were all able to give this amazing testimony. And there are, I saw that there are 80,000 different religions in the world, or different cults, or different beliefs in the world, 80,000, but not even one other than Judaism, tries to claim that Hashem revealed himself to millions. No other religion tries to claim that because they would never be able to prove such a thing. And we can also see that when Hashem, after they were brought to the mountain of Sinai, they were given the Torah. The first thing that it says on the tablets that they were given, it says, "Anochi Hashem Elokecha," I am your God. That I took you out of Egypt, from the house of slaves. And the question to be asked is, why did Hashem give this? If you're presenting yourself to the Jews, you should say, I am Hashem, who created the world, right? It sounds so much more impressive. Or you might think, but it's not what Hashem chose to do. Hashem chose to present himself as the one who took us out of Egypt, because this is something that we experienced. This is something that our ancestors went through, and they were able to give the testimony. 3 million Jews were able to give this testimony. And that is our proof. And it's something that we need to bring down to our lives. It's something that we need to remind ourselves, because you know what? There was a very, very famous rabbi, Rabbi Shalom Shvadon. He was very famous, and he used to give amazing lectures. And one of his students came to him and he told him, I'm supposed to give a shiur to a group of avrechim. Avrechim are people who are married, and they're sitting and learning Torah from morning to evening for years and years and years. And he asked him, what am I supposed to teach them? What kind of a shiur am I supposed to give them? They know everything. They know all of the halacha. They know all of the Talmud. They know all of the Mishnah. They know all of the Shulchan Aruch. What can I possibly teach them? They know everything by heart. So he told them, you know what? Go to them and tell them that there is a God. Because they might be learning everything, but the fact that there is a God is something that we sometimes forget. So I think that if it's something that is true about avrechim, about people that learn Torah for years and years and years from morning to evening, in a way it's also true about us. We forget that there is a Shem. We forget that there is a God, and we forget that not only that he created the world, but that he took us out of Egypt and he chose us. And that with great power comes great responsibility, and that we have a great mission ahead of us. But you know what? Put this aside. Just remember that there is a God. It's not that obvious, especially in our generation. And it's something that we should bring to our attention. This is what Pessach comes to tell us. Pessach comes to tell us there is a Shem. There is a Shem, and this world is not empty. And the difference, you know what makes a difference between a regular Jew and someone who is a real tzaddik, who is really righteous, like those holy, holy people that we look up to? You know what's the difference between us and them? The fact that they practice the pasuk, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, which means I envision Hashem in front of me all the time. If we would envision Hashem right there in front of us all the time, if it would have been clear to us how Hashem sees us every second, how Hashem loves us, and how Hashem hears every word that we say, we would have behaved differently. We would have spoken differently to people around us. We would have treated the people around us differently. We would have been different. And that's the difference between us and really righteous people, that they envision Hashem in front of them all the time, that they don't forget that there is Hashem. Sometimes we do. So what I want you to take from this is try to bring Hashem more to your lives. Remember that there is Hashem. Remember that there is a God, there is a creator. Sometimes we just go along with our days and we don't even notice how they pass by, but we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't let the time fly out of our fingers. That's it. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day. And I hope that we will all have a super meaningful Pessach. And I'm looking forward to the day that we can learn together. Thank you. Bye.